Hello, and welcome to another episode of PGS All-Stars. I'm your host, Rrr Mmmm. PGS All-Stars is a show that features you, members of the Post-Geek Singularity. On today's show, our guest is a well-known PGS member, Mikeylito. We're going to be talking to him about what he loves about entertainment and so much more. Welcome to the program, Mikeylito.
Why, thank you. I'm going to use the John Campria pronunciation, RM, because I can't roll my R's like Robert. It's kind of annoying. but thank you very much for the invite. And I just want to let the PGS members know that I've been one of the fortunate few to meet RM in person, and she is as fabulous a person in person as she is on screen.
Oh, thank you so much. That is so kind of you. I so appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's deserved.
Thank you. And I have to say the same thing about you as well. Well, I want to start off today's program by learning more about you. And as you know, I created the program so PGS members could get to know other PGS members and creators. So let's find out more about your background. Can you please tell us how you became a member and contributor to the PGS?
Okay, well, I'm tempted to use an old Bill Cosby routine. I started out as a child. But basically, I'm 68 years old. I'm from Brooklyn, New York originally. Right now, I live out on Long Island on the South Shore. And I became a PGS member, oddly enough, when our mentor, Robert Meyer Burnett, was having all of his problems with the Schmodown people. I had been watching Rob and John Campia and the Collider crew for a number of years. And I was basically like all other YouTube content that I watch. I was kind of like in and out on it and what have you. But when all the controversy with Robert happened, I kind of focused in on what was going on. And like the whole thing seemed like completely weird to me and what have you. So I started watching Robert's show more and more and more. And I really appreciate Rob's show because it's a lot like the kinds of things that I like to do. It's egalitarian, pluralistic. So the show was kind of interesting to me and what have you. So I just decided to watch more and more and more. And then when he started doing the Midnighter, which was really like open topics on like whatever you wanted to talk about, then that really piqued my interest and what have you. And that's the reason why I made the appearance on that show, because as we all know, I got all hyped up over In the Heights. So I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we certainly will. And we have seen you on The Midnighter, and you've been a fantastic guest on that show. And, it was a great show. And we're so glad that you did decide to, log on and share your experiences and concerns and things that you love. So, that was good to see that. And I'm sure the other PGS members share that sentiment. And I also wanted to know, do you happen to have a background in the theater arts or entertainment field?
No. Actually, a little bit later, we'll be talking about some of the things that went on in my childhood. But basically, I started out in the information technology industry. Mm-hmm. And I was in that industry until the unfortunate events of 9/11 happened. And then after that, I was in retail for a little while. And I'm basically a child of the television age. As I mentioned earlier, I'm 68 years old. So I grew up with television. I wasn't really on the tail end of radio or of anything, so I don't go back that far, but radio drama does interest me. Mm-hmm. But I was like totally involved with television. And then I got involved with like movies and plays and things later on.
That's very interesting. Of course, that generation, that first generation that had television like that, it was a very special time. And just having all those fantastic shows and, in addition to having some radio shows that were also very good, like The Flash and, things like that. It was certainly a unique experience. And people are actually going back and listening to some of those broadcasts, those original broadcasts, or, actors, ensembles are recreating some of those scenes and episodes from those broadcasts. So, they actually, still have retained quite a bit of their value, and people are still, looking back to those. So,
and one of the things about entertainment is it's very derivative. So like lights out. It really comes from radio shows.
yes.
War of the Worlds was a radio show. There was the old Mercury Theater show from Orson Welles, what have you. So the fact that a lot of modern day content gets repeated over and over and over again, it's not really surprising to me, because if you've been around long enough and what have you, you start seeing the same content over and over. And while it might seem new, if you do a little bit of research, you find out that it comes from something else, which is fine as long as it's done well.
Yes. And, recently with that show WandaVision, where they decided to go somewhat retro, as a lot of these graphic novels tend to do. But this one, where in her story, she made a conscious decision to live the lifestyle that a woman would live in the 1950s, even so much as to put it back into sort of like a black and white television show. I think that goes without saying that, we still look back to those shows, like you said,
Right.
And, we're still pulling from them. And, I think that it worked very well in that context. So, it's great to kind of still enjoy some of those scenarios in modern entertainment, with a twist. So I also wanted to ask you, and of course, you've mentioned that you listen to Robert and John Campea. Are there any other influences on YouTube or other social media that you go to regularly?
I listen to, here goes the 68-year-old mind again. He just left Screen Junkies.
Okay, that's okay. Well, you listen
I'll think of it in a second. But Mara, he's Mara's partner. I can't think of his name right now.
Now, is Screen Junkies that's okay. Is Screen Junkies a YouTube channel as well, Mikey?
I used to watch it quite a bit. Dan Murrell, that's what I was trying to think of.
Oh.
Good Lord. I watch Dan Murrell a lot. Chris Stuckman on occasion. Josh McCougas happens to be a favorite of mine. Don't watch the Smowdown stuff too much anymore. That really had a lot to do with the pandemic, because it kind of lost the live audience element to the show.
Right.
But perhaps I will get into that again and what have you. But those are basically the shows that I watch. And then I tend to poke around YouTube. I don't watch a lot of regular television too much anymore. I will watch movies on occasion, or particular shows on occasion. Because of Shang-Chi, I happen to get into Kim's Convenience. So that's like a show that I'm checking out right now.
Yeah.
But I tend to like poke around YouTube and just see what other creators are doing and what have you.
And let me ask you, why do you suppose I also find myself turning to YouTube more and more than ever before. Why do you suppose there seems to be a shift, let's say, from traditional television channels, broadcast channels, let's say, to the YouTube channel surfing now? What do you think is behind that?
Because there's nothing there. There's really, again, it's a lot of derivative content. The news isn't really the news. So, I mean, local news is basically about fires and shootings and various things that happen around. It's funny. Recently, when we had all the weather occurrences, recently, I had no idea what was going on because where I live, we got by relatively unscathed. And meanwhile, my brother was in Pittsburgh for a few weeks, and he was calling me every day like, is the house still there and what's going on? And I'm going like, what are you talking about, dude? And whatever. And then when I finally tuned in the news, it was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. So I have a tendency really to withdraw and not really watch anything on regular television because it's so repetitive and nothing is really going on. So
Yeah, you make a good point. I also am turning to YouTube now more than ever for similar reasons. And you know, the variety of what's on YouTube is seems to be pretty much unmatched anywhere. So you know, you can type in anything that interests you and
exactly.
possibly find a broadcast on something you love. So, you know, it certainly is something that I think is very unique and wonderful that we can find programming like that. So, so I also wanted to ask you about your own channel. You have mentioned that you created a show called Mikeylito Live, and it's a YouTube channel now. And I just wanted to know how and why you created Mikeylito Live. I think you muted yourself.
All right. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I
No,
can.
I actually lost my primary mic and what have you, but fortunately I had a backup ready. Um,
Okay.
the reason I started this channel, it's sort of like an experimental educational channel. um, because I did my first episode and I am my own worst critic. I was just like horrified with how it turned out. So it's been, I think,
Oh,
I think it's been 3 weeks since I did the broadcast. I'm going to do another broadcast, but
okay.
I was really kind of upset that about how it turned out because I didn't prepare, and I do know better. At this point, I'd like to mention that um, for the last year during the pandemic, I was producing a video program for a friend of mine in North Carolina called Chemo Glow, and I'll have to shoot you the link so that people can see what that was about. So I
Yes.
knew that preparation was really important for the program, and we usually did a week, or I usually did a week's worth of preparation
Yeah.
leading up to the broadcast. And the broadcast that I did on my own channel on August the 24th, I just had a weird day, and I was really kind of ticked off at all the things that had happened to me that day. And I just decided, you know what, tonight's the night that I'm going live. So I had things that I wanted to say, but I really didn't do any show prep. And for people that's thinking of doing any kind of stream, show prep is like ultra important.
Yeah.
So I really wasn't happy with the way the first show turned out, and I've been kind of slapping myself around for the last 3 weeks, trying to get myself ready uh, doing the show again, but I do plan on doing it. And somewhere here, I have a little slide, if you don't mind.
Oh,
These are
wow.
these. That's the link to my uh, channel, and these are the shows that I plan on doing. Live After Midnight is the show that I did and that I will continue to be doing. And then I plan on doing like a movie review show. And if music and streaming and other things entertain me, that'll be reviewed on the Multiplex show. Word is a show about the American language because it really ticks me off the way Americans use the language. And
Okay.
Get Off My Lawn is a is a show about a 68-year-old guy who gets pissed off at people and the things that they do. And if it's something that I want to talk about, it'll be little short videos about that. So
Wow, I
that's the
love
plan.
that. I love your programming roster. I think that they're all, incredibly interesting and people will tune into that. And I especially am very interested in Get Off the Lawn show. I certainly will have to catch that one as well. But what an eclectic, list you have of programming, and it sounds very exciting.
The Get Off the Lawn show, I'm preparing one about the Marvel Cinematic Universe because
Okay.
of all, it really kind of ticks me off that the comic book fans want the MCU to be exactly like the comic books, and the MCU has never been exactly like the comic books.
Right.
So that's what that will be about. But I'm not quite ready to do that yet, and what have you. But it's coming, folks. The important thing about my channel is that I'm fully prepared for the fact that I might be the only one watching it and listening in, but I really want it to be a lot like the Midnighter show in
Mhm.
that I will give my opinion and then I will offer the floor to other people to either agree or disagree with me. I really don't care which. I just want it to be an open discussion and we'll see what happens.
Well, it sounds wonderful, and that's a wonderful approach to sharing your ideas, and then also having other people share their ideas. It always makes for interesting discussion, and I think that a lot of people will tune in for that. So I'm
I,
looking forward to seeing that.
I think that we have a wonderful community, and I think one of the things that Rob has demonstrated is something that I've always known, that we exist on a planet. We just don't exist within the borders of our own country.
Right.
And I really think that Americans need to branch out and start listening to other people.
Mhm.
I know for all of my shows, I put my local time zone on, and then I also always put on uh, the UTC time zone. So basically, anybody across the country or around the planet can determine when the show is going to air. All you need to know is what UTC means. And if you don't know, maybe it's time you learned.
Well, that is very kind of you to do that, and it is appreciated, and it shows that you are thinking outside of the box and realize that we do have international viewers as well. So that is a kind thing to do, and I can't wait to see these shows. It's very exciting, and we certainly are going to be monitoring that to see when you are able to continue to air those. Um, you also have a passion for entertainment that spans many cinematic genres. What advice would you give a person just starting to watch art films or documentaries for the first time?
Uh, this is the only question I really gave a lot of thought to during the day because I wanted to be as spontaneous as possible. But I think my advice would be watch something you don't think that you're going to like, because you're going to discover so many different things that you didn't think that you were going to like, that it turns out that you actually do like. One of the things that I liked about Shang-Chi was the fact that so much of the early portion of the movie had subtitles and was in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, an entertainment like Shang-Chi can introduce audiences to the fact that, well, you know what? Subtitles aren't so bad. And so maybe after watching Shang-Chi, they'll watch, um, another foreign film that has subtitles like Parasite or something of that nature.
Right.
So um, I used to hate reading subtitles, and one of the things about being older is sometimes you need subtitles even on English programming. So
Yes.
so it's really not so bad, and it opens up another whole world of entertainment for you. And I'm not really a big horror fan. Speaking about that show Word that I'm planning on doing, I kind of hate the use of the word genre these days because it means something completely different to me than apparently it does to most people. I'm not big on horror films because I'm squeamish,
Okay.
and so, but occasionally I will watch horror films, and the more comedy that's in horror films, the more that I will watch it. But I watch all different kinds of films. Really, my genre is disaster porn.
Ah.
Roland Emmerich is my hero, but I love all kinds of films, dramas, mysteries. Alfred Hitchcock is my favorite director, so I love suspense shows. Christopher Nolan is one of my modern directors, and I'm finding I have a tendency now that if Taika Waititi's name is on something, that I'm going to watch it just to see how it is. So I've been watching Reservation Dogs on Hulu, and I'm finding that to be an interesting program. And I know he does a horror show also, What We Do in the Shadows. I haven't attempted to watch that yet, but I will because I find his shows and his movies particularly interesting these days. So
He certainly does have a sense of when to insert joke here, and it works. Unlike I think that he has this ability to look at whatever he's creating and say, I bet you that some humor would enhance this, and he seems to make it come alive. So he certainly does have a special talent, especially for horror. It seems like
when I watched Jojo Rabbit,
Mhm.
I found elements of horror throughout that film, and I'm not just talking about the shoe scene either.
Yeah.
There was another scene earlier in the film that I'm going like, whoa, that's kind of spooky, and I really don't want to say what it is because if anyone hasn't watched Jojo Rabbit, it's a film worth discussing in some detail, and I know the particular scene that I'm thinking of, and it happens quite a while before the shoe scene. So I just find a lot of his content, even when he appears just as an actor, like in Free Guy, very interesting.
Mhm. He certainly is, and that's an excellent point. Now, do you think that fans will always spend money on going to the movies or on going to like Comic Cons? And if so, why?
Um, First of all, I think fans can spend money on whatever they want. I'm
Mhm.
fairly certain most of us, I won't say all of us, but most of us um, work very hard for the money that we have, or have worked very hard for the money that we have. And if you've earned the money, then you're entitled to spend it on whatever you want to spend it on. That being said, uh, that being said, um, I really wish that people would spend a little bit money on things that have a little bit more impact on the community and society in general.
Hmm.
I have a tendency to, first of all, I'm a senior citizen, so I have a limited amount of income. I have a fixed income.
Right.
I do spend money on super chats and tips and movies and various silly things and what have you. A lot of us do. A lot of us will spend like $5 on a cup of coffee
Yes.
and not even think twice about it. But yet and still, when things like Hurricane Ida happen or the earthquake in Haiti happens and what have you, uh, I really wish that people would spend like $5 or $10 and make a contribution to the American Red Cross. And there's another organization that I support, even though I'm pretty sure that many of their members have political opinions that differ from mine, and that's Team Rubicon. Uh, that they are former military and first responders that respond to work when there are disasters and things and what have you. And I support Team Rubicon as well. And that is a good way to spend money and have impact in our community, locally and around the planet.
Well said.
And if you want to, and then after that, if you want to enjoy the Comic Cons, be my guest. I don't really care. I might go because I want to see how drunk Burnett can really get and what have you. But other than that, I'm not really interested.
All right. Fair enough. So I grew up watching, West Side Story on TV during the holidays, like most of us did. Like it was on TV all the time. They would show movies like that and other similar movies. I think The Sound of Music was another one that would come on a lot. What was your initial exposure to movies like West Side Story, musicals in particular? And what are your expectations going forward with the new release of West Side Story?
I'll get to West Side Story in a minute. My initial exposure was to The Sound of Music.
Yes.
Uh, I saw The Sound of Music at Radio City Music Hall,
Oh, wow.
where we went as a class. I was in an elementary school, Our Lady of Victory Elementary School in Brooklyn, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And we went as a group to see that at Radio City Music Hall. I, I find it fascinating when I hear some of the complaints these days about how long the movies were, because The Sound of Music was 5 minutes short of 3 hours, and it had an intermission.
Right. Right.
So, and I thought that was fantastic. And then I saw movies like the original Casino Royale, the comedy, with all the different actors playing versions of James Bond. And I ran into a movie the other night while I was just shooting around channels, the Yellow Rolls Royce, which I remember seeing in the movies. And on Broadway, I saw a play called The Me Nobody Knows, which just really, I saw some videos on YouTube recently of performances from that play.
Right.
And even today, the songs just blew me away. And that's it's kind of fascinating. I'm getting back to how derivative programming is. It also shows that the more things change, the more they remain the same. So much of this content from the 60s, 70s, and the 80s still is not dated today in 2021. And it just shows how much the country has not changed. I always like to poke Robert because I know he likes to think that the society was getting better. I understand what he's talking about. It was getting better. It's unfortunate that there's still so many things that are occurring in 2021 that were happening in 1961. So, we'll see how it goes. As far as where things are going today, I have no interest in Dune until I saw the trailer, and now I can't wait to see it. I'm looking forward to seeing Dear Evan Hansen.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing No Time to Die. I'm really getting tired of it being pushed back, so I hope it doesn't get pushed back again. And what have you. But I find a lot of films that are coming up interesting and what have you. I don't know that I have too much interest in Top Gun Maverick, but I'll see it because I'm a Regal Unlimited member. So I have the opportunity to see a lot of movies now and what have you, and we'll see how it is. And if it's good, I'll like it. I have no prejudice against it. We'll see how it goes. One movie a couple of movies I refuse to watch. I'm not going to watch Candyman. Aside from it being horror, I can't imagine why anybody would go around saying Candyman 5 times while looking in a mirror. So that makes no sense to me. And Malignant, I know was on HBO Max recently, and I don't know. I may watch it, but up until now, I haven't watched it.
Okay. Do you think fans have been more vocal about their opinions about films and different, like the MCU over the last 10 years? And if so, what do you think was one of the main drivers to them being more vocal, or what was driving the trend of them being, more vocal or outspoken?
Well, I hate to be cliche, but the answer is obvious. It's social media. Unfortunately, people see it's good that everybody can have their own opinion, but their opinions need to be backed up with fact and reality. I've seen you on Midnight's Edge, and I've been watching Midnight's Edge recently, and for a while the program was interesting. And now they're turning me off because they're saying a lot of things and they don't seem to have a whole lot of facts to back them up. It just seems to be, well, we don't like this, or we want this company to do bad and what have you. So we're going to say this about that. And I don't mind people having negative opinions. I know that I was really big on In the Heights, and I didn't have any problem with whether people liked or disliked In the Heights. What I didn't like about it was that people that didn't see it just automatically had a negative opinion about it because of some problem that they thought that the film had. And to me, that really didn't make a whole lot of sense. A discussion I'd like to have in the future is comparing Black Panther with In the Heights and with Shang-Chi, because two of those films had really fantastic audience response and one didn't. And I'm really curious as to the reason as to why. But social media really gives people a lot of opportunity just to be negative. And a personal example for me was when I did my first appearance on Midnighter, and I was having a discussion with Robert, and then he was just asking me questions, and I was trying to answer them as honestly as I could. And I have a tendency, because I've been doing online communities since 1993,
Yes.
to go back and read comments and chat when I have the opportunity. And one of the persons there said that I wanted revenge, and I'm going like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Wanting revenge for what? I am one person among 300 million in this country, and God knows how many around the planet. Who am I going to take revenge upon? And why would I do that? And people just have a tendency to be uncivil. And um, one of the things that disturbs me about chat is a lot of times I'll be watching a program, and what's going on in chat has nothing to do with what's going on the screen. And I don't really understand that. There's so many other outlets for you to have those kinds of discussions. Why are you coming to this place? Obviously, it's just to be seen and what have you. So, I would hope that people would use social media better, but people being people and human nature being what it is, I don't have too high expectations.
Okay. Well, I have another question for you. Um, I have seen the movie version of The Heights, and you did mention it just a little while ago. And, when I watched it, I was amazed by the music. In fact, I said a few weeks ago, and I'm saying it again now, that it has the best music I've ever heard in a musical. And I have heard very many musicals. So I wanted to know, what were some of your favorite musical moments in The Heights and why?
Um, Personally, I love almost all of the music in the Heights. I should say at this point, I hate rap music, and so I have a resistance to a lot of Lin Manuel Miranda's uh, content. But I was determined. This is an example of a movie, sitting down and watching a movie that you don't think that you'll like. That's the way that I approached In the Heights. But to me, um, between John Chu being the director and seeing the previews that I saw, the trailers that I saw and what have you, I was kind of looking forward to it. And to me, the, all of the music was fantastic. Um, I think the song that had the most impact to me was Paciencia y Fe.
Yes.
That was Abuela Claudia's exit number.
Yes.
Um, that it was a very powerful. It was a very powerful piece to me and what have you. And I when I know you were going to ask me about physical media.
Yes.
So here it
Oh, you
is.
have it.
As soon as it came out,
Right.
I'm a big digital person,
Hmm.
so I buy a lot of movies on digital. But I waited to get it on digital because this has. I'm always bad when it comes to internet cameras, but you can't see it because of the reflection. But it has a digital copy attached to it. So I
Yes.
waited a month for the physical disc to come out because I was going to get the digital copy anyway, and this is a good movie to have on physical media. And as soon as I got it, I put it on and just listened to it.
Yes.
I have Spotify Premium, and so I could listen to the soundtrack on Spotify if I wanted to.
Hmm.
It's not the same as listening to the soundtrack directly from the film itself. And it's just I found all the music on it like really really powerful. Now you asked about the current West Side Story.
Yes.
I'm going to try and approach it with an open mind. But one of the problems that I have with West Side Story is its director, someone I usually love, Steven Spielberg. But Steven Spielberg was a producer on Cats, and Cats was just terrible. It was just terrible. I heard before going into the movie that it was bad, and I forced myself to go watch it, and I'm surprised I didn't walk out. And I didn't learn until after the fact that he was a producer of that movie, because I do sit and watch credits, not even for just Marvel movies, everybody. I watch credits for all movies. And I just couldn't believe how ridiculous and bad that it was. So, and this is another film that I'm going to compare to In the Heights, because I'm interested in how the Latinx slash Latino slash Latina community reacts to that film compared to how they reacted to In the Heights.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, it appears from the trailers that it's pretty much just an update of the what is it, 50s or 60s
Right.
production.
Mm-hmm.
Of that production. So nothing could be more stereotypical than West Side Story. And I'm just interested what the reaction to that film is going to be. But I'm definitely going to watch it. It's coming from my favorite studio, Disney, so why not?
Okay. So, do you think the pandemic has shaped or changed the approach to storytelling in video and or cinema today?
Not too much, really. We had a number of filmmakers that, not surprisingly, attempted to cash in on the pandemic and use that as a storytelling device. And to me, an earlier film, Contagion, was a much better storytelling device about the pandemic, and it was at least 5 to 6 years in advance of the pandemic.
Yes.
And everything that happened in the movie Contagion happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, which, by the way, folks, still going on.
Yes, I think they have to get under a certain amount in order for it to not be a pandemic anymore, or something like that. So, but I also enjoyed watching Contagion, which I think it's Madeline Cotillard and such an ensemble cast of actors in it that it really was enjoyable to watch that. But you're right, there were quite a few similarities between that film and what happened in real life. So it's interesting. It was based on a book, right, Mikey?
I'm not sure if it's based on a book or not.
Okay.
I was originally attracted to the film, oddly enough, because of the trailer. And this is when it originally came out. And I sat down and watched it, and I just loved the way that they told the story, because they started at day 2 and told the story to the end, and then went back to day 1 to show you what actually happened.
Yes.
And I thought that was a fantastic storytelling device, and it was very suspenseful, and as it turned out, quite accurate.
We finally found out who Patient Zero was. I mean,
exactly.
if only we could find that out now, right?
One of my favorite actors in the film, and I apologize to the audience for jumping around like this, but it actually brings up something else I want to talk about. Was Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted to talk about Lawrence Fishburne is because I wanted to talk about, speaking of words, woke and cancel culture. I first learned about, I think I looked this up earlier. I first learned about wokeness watching the film School Days.
Yes.
And for people that want to know something about woke culture, perhaps you should watch School Days, because the very last scene in that movie will tell you everything about woke culture. And that was a movie, I think it was from the 80s.
It was from the 80s, and they break the fourth wall in that scene. And I'm not going to say what happens, but I know what you're referring to. I saw that movie in the movie theaters. I was in high school at the time, and it was a big deal. It was like Spike Lee, who still is a big deal, but at that time he was groundbreaking, and everybody was talking about this film. It was the talk of the town, really.
Right. And so really that's my way of saying that I don't believe in woke culture and cancel culture and what have you. It's just another device that people use to argue amongst themselves on social media. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think he also made the same point, and let me know if you agree with this, on Do the Right Thing. Like, there's a similar parallel message for me when I think about, in his film, Do the Right Thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that he definitely had hit the nerve of what sparks culture. In fact, there's one part where he talks about how it's 100 degrees, and he almost implies that means the tempers will flare.
Right.
And I think that it's a very empathetic and sensitive film that shows that he understands how many people may be feeling and thinking at that time. And it was something that a lot of people did not want to talk about. It's a thorny topic that
and still does.
Yes, many people steer away from, at that time, especially when people didn't even want to talk about that. But I think that, it certainly is as poignant as it was then as it is today. So it's very interesting. And Spike Lee has been the sort of like the maitre d' of Cannes for the past few years. And I'm kind of glad, because in my personal opinion, I never felt he got the recognition that he deserved all these years. What is it? Almost 25 years, 30 years that he's been making films, and pretty much they've all been successful. I mean, when you think about a person's line of work, and especially work that, shows a very unique point of view. He showed multiple views. This was, it's very interesting when you look at his approach to storytelling.
He has done a lot of different films. Do the Right Thing was one of the first films that approached gentrification in ghetto neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of parenthetically comparing the hottest day of the year and do the Right Thing to the hottest day of the year in the Heights. Two completely different things. So,
yes.
So yeah, I love a lot of his films, and the most recent film of his that I saw was Black Klansmen, which I enjoyed quite a bit, and what have you. My brother and I were just talking about it just the other day.
Yes. And about the only film that he made, I guess it was more like a documentary. And we're actually going to be talking about a documentary in a few seconds, but he made a documentary about a bombing that happened in the South during the Civil Rights Movement. And I think it was called Four Little Black Girls. Was that the name of it?
It's either Four Little Girls or Three Little Girls. I'm not exactly certain. But it was about the church bombing in Birmingham.
Yes. And, of course, to just briefly talk about it, it was a documentary that he made, and it was important because, so many lives were lost, and these were innocent girls who, really had nothing to do with any of this stuff, but were, essentially became victims because, of these bombings that took place. And I thought it was an excellent documentary. And while, the majority of his work is not documentaries, it just shows that he's incredibly versatile as a storyteller and a director.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. He's another director that does all different kinds of genres. He does comedies. He does musicals. What was the other? Chirac was like another musical.
Yes.
That he did was kind of like it wasn't strange and what have you, but it was certainly unique. Uh,
Yes.
so yeah, I enjoy a lot of his work. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Yeah, he really is thought provoking, and he has just this ability to create a story. Whether you and I like it or not, it's still a very unique point of view, and he's got something for everyone. I think in his list of films, and there aren't a lot of directors that can say that. So so that's interesting as well. Um, so I must ask you about your family's wonderful documentary featuring a very special person. The documentary is My Name is Pauli Murray, and it features the Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray, who is your aunt and a very important person in your life, as well as a very important person in American history. Can you please tell us more about this documentary, how it came about, and where can we see it?
Okay. Well, first of all, I have, other than the subject being my aunt, who, like you said, was very important in my life and the lives of many in my family. Uh, we have no financial interest in the film. We had nothing to do with the film. The only person that was, only family member that was involved in the film was my cousin, who happens to be her name is Karen Ross. So she's a Karen, and Karen has been carrying the torch for the Pauli Murray Foundation ever since Aunt Pauli died in 1985.
Hmm.
Um, Aunt Pauli was very important to me. She kind of functioned like a third parent for me. Uh, I love my parents very dearly, and she was my father's sister, and she dropped in and out of my life from the time I was born in 1953 until I got married on May 11th, 1985, and she died on July 1st, 1985. So
Hmm.
shortly, shortly before she died, she officiated at my wedding,
Oh,
which no longer exists, by the way. uh, but she was a very important person in my life, and when I was a youngster, she used to her one of her apartments was very close to the Angelica Film Center, where the film is appearing Friday, September 17th, along with 54 other theaters around the United States.
wow.
Sorry, Rob. uh, but she used to have me in her apartment cutting out clippings of the news of the day about
Hmm.
the various subjects that she was interested in about civil rights and women's rights and things like that. And she would play classical music, which I didn't not enjoy. It was something that I was exposed to uh, listening to in her apartment, and she even found a piece of music, classical music for children, uh, the Carnival by Saint Saëns, that Bernstein directed, that I listened to, that I found enjoyable. I forget how old I was when I first heard it, and I would travel around with her uh, throughout New England. She was at Yale University, where she got her doctorate in law. Uh, she taught at Brandeis University in Waltham, Massachusetts.
Hmm.
She was a founder of the National Organization for Women, where she took me to some of the organizational meetings. And I know when we met to see Tango Shalom, I told you the story about how I went to one of the meetings with her, and I held the door open for women because that's what I was taught to do. And I got cursed out by apparently really radical feminist. So, uh, but she was a very important person in my life. She was in and out of my life, like I said, from the time I was born to the time that she died. And the film is from Participant Media and is directed by the directors of the documentary RBG about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And
Right.
their names are Betsy West and Julie Cohen. And I think they did a fabulous job because they did not have a whole lot of video source content to use on the documentary, but yet and still they took her writings and the video that they could get and what have you, and they produced a really fantastic documentary that I think everyone should see, not just because she's my aunt, but once you learn about her, you learn that she was very important to American civil rights and American women's rights.
Hmm.
And, I hope people will go see it. It is on my website. Well, my website is Mikeylito.com. And in the upper left hand corner, you will see a slide. I do have a slide. Um,
Can you put up the slide now, Mikey?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There it is. Uh,
Wonderful.
it appears in theaters on, like I said, Friday, September 17th. And then
Hmm.
on October 1st, when I know there's a lot of uh, attention being vied for by other things that are going on in our community, it will appear on Prime Video. And as soon as I know when it appears on VOD, I will let people know and what have you. But you will have a lot of opportunities to see it. And as far as I'm concerned, she cannot get enough recognition for the things that she did. And people can come talk to me about controversy about her anytime they want and what have you. I won't get into that here.
Okay. And I noticed that on the slide, it says that the film was submitted to the Sundance Film Festival.
Yes, it appeared at the Sun. That's when I first saw the film. It was at the Sundance Film Festival this earlier January 2021. The film festival was digital because of the pandemic.
Right.
So that actually gave everybody a lot of opportunity to see it. So maybe people have seen it already. And it has appeared at various film festivals across the country. But I was very moved by the film, and people will discover things about her because she was really a trailblazer. There's a lot of stories in American civil rights where people have heard of other people, and you'll be fascinated to learn what Aunt Paulie did years before some of these other people did. And if I might, it's kind of difficult for me to talk about her because one of the things about her in this film that has taught me about other people is, to me, I was aware of the things that she was doing, but to me, she was just Aunt Paulie. And
Right.
and I knew that she was special. I once asked her in her apartment on Beacon Street in Boston, why she didn't uh, go for more publicity, and she wasn't really interested in publicity. She was just interested in getting things done. Um, she had a relationship with former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. She was appointed by President Kennedy to the uh, Commission on the Status of Women in 1961.
Hmm.
She traveled to uh, Accra, Ghana in 1960, long before people were talking about African Americans going back to Africa. So she had a very wide experience, and she did a lot of different things, and I really want people to learn about her and know her. I guess that's really what I have to say.
Well, it sounds wonderful. The documentary is My Name is Pauli Murray. And as you said, it's going to be in the theaters September 17th, you said?
Correct.
And
55 different theaters around the United States. If you go to my website, Mikeylito.com, and click on the poster that we just showed you, you will see the 55 theaters that are listed all across the country.
yes, and the documentary was submitted to the Sundance Film Festival and was a hit there. And you're going to get an opportunity to see it. Definitely go to Mikeylito.com to see more information about My Name is Pauli Murray, which is going to be coming to theaters soon.
And Amazon Prime Video on October 1st.
Yes, and on Amazon Prime Video on October 1st.
So after you come home from what is that? Venom? We're all going to see Venom that day.
Yes.
Come home and watch that. You know.
Well, I'm so looking forward to that, and I almost am counting the days till I'm probably going to take my mother to see this in the theater, and I know she's going to love it. So it's wonderful that it's one of the PGS members who, one of your family members who's had such a pivotal role in, pretty much making the world a better place.
Yes.
And I think that's something that is very rare and definitely something to be proud of.
And I'm a little hesitant to talk about it because I'm like a moon. You know how the moon is the reflected light of the sun. I'm living in the reflected light of her legacy, but a lot of the person that I am comes from my parents and from her. So you watch the film, you will learn a lot about me as well.
Well, I certainly can't wait to see it. And for everybody watching this, please do check it out. My Name is Pauli Murray is the documentary that we're all looking forward to seeing.
Thank you.
And I have another question for you.
Sure.
And we did touch on this just a bit earlier about physical media collections. And you mentioned that you were mainly digital, but you do pick up some special pieces like the one you showed us, the 4K in the Heights. Do you collect any other types of things, or are there collections that you've seen elsewhere and that you've liked?
I pulled out, well, first of all, for Tom Jr. Jackson. Yes, as soon as Kino Lorber puts it out, yes, I'm getting it. So,
is it To Live and Die in LA?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to mention it because it's a sore subject with somebody.
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
Somebody we both know and love.
Yes.
Which I have a slide for him too.
Yes.
Yeah. Where is it? Here it is.
Who is?
Exactly. So
that's very clever. Maybe you'll do a PGS Jeopardy show for us.
Well, I had like 4 other clues and what have you, but that was the best one. This is something that I got recently because I love these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And most of their stuff does not appear on television anymore.
Right.
So I've been seeking this out and what have you. This is all 28 films that they did for Universal.
Yes. I only ever see their shows on Turner Classic Movies.
That's the last time I saw them too, a couple of weeks ago. What have you?
Yeah.
They had like one day of Abbott and Costello movies, and it was that. And then this is something that I picked up recently because it's also very rare.
Oh,
to see on television. This is a fantastic movie about the end of the world. I mentioned that I am a disaster porn fan, but
right.
but this is actually relevant because it's about nuclear war,
Yes.
and it's from the either the 50s or the 60s. And for whatever reason, it's very rare. You don't see it on TV anymore. There's a bootleg copy somewhere on YouTube, but this is a fantastic movie to watch and what have you.
Now,
And then
does that movie involve like a luxury liner?
no,
No, it doesn't.
no,
Okay.
this is about an American nuclear submarine that there has apparently been a nuclear war. This all happens very early in the film, so it's not a spoiler. Um, American nuclear submarine that ends up going to Australia because Australia is the last place on the planet that has not yet been affected by the nuclear war,
Right.
and it is what happens with the people on the Swordfish. That's the name of the submarine. Of the crew of the Swordfish and the people in Australia, what happens to them from the beginning to the end of the film, and it's on the beach. It's a very good watch. I recommend it to everyone, and obviously it's available on Blu-ray.
Yes.
And then the last thing that I'll show you is a series that appeared on FX that's now on FX on Hulu, and I happen to have a digital copy that I'm not a physical copy that I won when I was watching the series, and it's called The Bridge. Come on, Mike. The Bridge. And this is a adaptation of a movie from it's either Norway or Sweden that they originally did, and it was adapted for an American audience, and it's about the bridge between El Paso and Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, and a murder takes place, and half of the body is on the American side, and half of the body is on the Mexican side.
Wow.
And it's the outgrowth of what happens from that murder investigation, and it's a 2 seasons, and I think it's either 10 or 13 episodes each season, and it's a very good series and what have you. And it's like I said, that's the physical copy.
It sounds amazing.
And I've already showed you that. So
yes.
So I have a whole chest of discs, but I stopped collecting physical copies of movies because I mentioned earlier that I was in IT until 2001, and like Robert talked about all his property that he lost in his storage unit, I had the exact same thing happen to me because I was out of work and I missed a payment, and all of my possessions got sold.
Oh no.
And it's just as traumatic as he talks about. And it's something that you never, ever, ever forget. But I didn't have as many movies and things as he had.
Right.
But I stopped collecting physical, basically because I have no place to start. But I have a lot of movies on digital. And that's basically the way that I collect movies now. But thanks to Mr. Burnett, he's got me collecting physical media again.
Now, you mentioned already some of your favorite directors and movies, and you've been kind enough to share that with us. I was just curious, outside of the amazing documentary that your family has coming out, what movies, other than the ones you mentioned, are you looking forward to this year?
Basically, like I said earlier, I really want to see No Time to Die.
Mm-hmm.
Before the delay, and this is one of the reasons why I mentioned woke culture and what have you, because uh, I actually would have shot the opening. You know that little scene at the beginning, the trope, the gun sight trope. I actually would have used Lashana Lynch in that opening because we already know in the film she's the new 007. So the movies are supposed to be about 007, not about James Bond per se. So I actually would have used her in that shot. So I'm actually interested to see how they use her, but I'm pretty sure they won't do that because a lot of the later trailers have been completely focused on Craig as Bond. So for the people that don't understand why Bond is involved in another case, this has already been talked about. I don't know. This is not a spoiler. Um, Felix Leiter gets him involved in in a case. So
Mm-hmm.
um, he Bond has been retired, and Felix Leiter brings him back into all the nonsense that's going on and what have you. So I'm really looking forward to that to see how they wrapped it up because one of the things I liked about all the Daniel Craig Bonds was that it was more or less a continuing story, and I'm interested to see how they wrapped it up. We don't need to necessarily see individual stories. I like it when people with franchises do things a little bit differently. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Dear Evan Hansen, which I got completely involved with just based on the trailer.
It is
Because
quite compelling.
that song blew me away.
Yes.
So I don't really care if the guy looks older than he actually supposed to be. So
No one cares. Yes.
John Campea, stop it. Uh, uh, so I'm really looking forward to that film. I'm looking forward to Dune because that trailer looks really fantastic. And if
Yes.
Denis Villeneuve wants to do part two, since I understand you saw the trailer and it was part one, if he wants to do part two and part three, whatever, they should go ahead and do it because he and Legendary Pictures are really getting screwed on this being a day and date release. There's absolutely no reason for it to be a day and date release other than we don't want to tell the HBO Max subscribers that we're going back on our word. So, whatever. Um,
I mean, there have been films that they said we're going to release and they didn't release them. So what difference should it make if they go back on their word, right?
exactly.
So that's
And I'm interested. I'm always interested to see what Feige and crew are up to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Uh,
yes.
because Shang-Chi totally blew me away.
Hmm.
And you saw it in IMAX the day that we got together to see Tango Shalom, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Did
I,
you see it in IMAX?
no, I still have to see it in IMAX, and I think I'm going tomorrow. I'm not sure,
Oh.
but I can't decide whether I want to see it in IMAX or whether I want to see it in 3D. And the thing is, I'll probably end up doing both because you don't get to see many 3D movies too much
Yeah.
anymore. And,
Yeah.
and I'm not really sure why. I would love to see it in IMAX 3D and kill two birds with one stone, but whatever. Um, so I'm very interested in how Eternals is going to come out. I actually think Shang-Chi. I think Shang-Chi is going to pay off immediately in Eternals. That's what I think. We'll see one way or the other. I'm not too happy with the way Marvel has handled um, the multiverse because I think they've had other opportunities to do things better, and the fact that they jump around in the timeline all the time also confuses things a little bit. but it doesn't matter because it's their show, and it's our job to just sit there and watch it, and we can pass judgment on it afterwards. So I'm looking forward, obviously, in addition to the Eternals, to Spider-Man, No
Yes.
Way Home, and also Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
And
it's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing all those films as well. I am definitely going to see Shang-Chi in 3D. I didn't see it in 3D, so I think it'd be the perfect kind of film to see in 3D.
it's one of those movies, like In the Heights, that's enjoyable from start to finish. I found it to be I films of cultural significance. I tend to start at 10 on a 10 scale, and then take off points and what have you. And to me, it was the perfect movie. It had the right amount of exposition. Um, I really I know that Wen Wu, which is Shang-Chi's father, is a lot of people are taking him as a villain. I really did not see him as a villain. Um, there was quite a bit of exposition that was done with him and his wife. It was the perfect film. It was absolutely the perfect film, and it honestly did not tie into the MCU until the mid credit scene. So I don't know what the problem is with some people with that film. So
Well, I one thing I did want to say about Shang-Chi is that sometimes in movies like this, we do see what I like to call fantastical creatures or mythical creatures. And in that culture, they do have some beautiful mythical creatures.
right,
And I feel like they represented them in this film in such a beautiful way. Just how you would imagine they would be. So if anything, it shows that, whoever worked on this film loved the idea of bringing these creatures to life in a way that looks very real and is entertaining looking. And, I want one of them. I'm waiting for them to make, versions of them somewhere, either sideshow versions or.
do you do a lot of hot toy collections and things like that?
I collect some things, not a lot, but mainly Star Wars items.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mainly the Mandalorian. Yes, the Mandalorian, which I love. So,
Yeah, I've enjoyed the Mandalorian. I really did not get into Star Wars until Rogue One.
yeah, Rogue One was excellent.
Yeah, I loved Rogue One, and then I went back and watched the other films because, in terms of film technology, the original trilogy is kind of dated, but they're still enjoyable to watch. And just to tick some people off and what have you, the film that I really enjoyed out of the third trilogy was The Last Jedi.
Mhm.
I I enjoyed that immensely. I didn't have any problem at all with Luke being a sourpuss, not unlike myself. So,
Well, what's interesting about this is that I think the Mandalorian showed us that we're going to see Luke a little bit more often, and find out how exactly he may or may not have turned out to be that way at that time period in time. So um, we're going to get more, and I think it's an exciting time for Star Wars fans
do you think
to
they
get.
will quickly bring back Grogu or what?
Oh yeah, they're going to bring back Grogu. I mean, he lives for 1,000 years, so he's not going anywhere. Good or bad.
Right.
But I think that it would be interesting to see more dark side users, and I think that we might see a shift in. Not in the timeline, but just sort of like a shift in what they're going to show us as the dominant group. Many more, let's say a period where there are many more dark side users would be nice to see just, what their lives were like. So I'm open to anything.
Because like all of us on this planet, we all have a good side and a dark side,
Yes.
and they manifest themselves in different ways throughout our life. So
They certainly do. And I did want to ask you, is there anything else you would like your fans and the PGS members to know?
well, first of all, I want Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett to know that I have a lot of respect for him in ways that maybe other people don't understand. I like the fact that he's loyal to his friends, despite some of the problems that they might be having. And I love the fact that he supports us in the way that he does and encourages us in the way that he does. And any part of the reason that I even attempt to do a YouTube channel has a lot to do with him. So that's one thing. And the other thing that I want all the audience members to think about is, if you want to think about horror, think about the decisions that you make on a daily basis. Life is a 1 and 0 combination. Everything that you do throughout the entire day is a yes or no decision, and it's going to affect your life in ways that you don't even understand. And if you want to think about horror, think about that before you go to bed.
Yes, that's some excellent insights into the impact that you can have, not just on your life, but on the entire community that we live in. And of course, the documentary that we're all waiting for on September 17th.
Yes.
Is called My Name is Pauli Murray, and it features the Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray. And her life was incredibly important to Mikeylito and even more important to American history. So you absolutely have to check it out if you get a chance to. The documentary comes out in September 17th. And then after that, it will be available for viewing on digitally on October 1st. And so if you don't get a chance to go to the theater, definitely check it out digitally. And you can find Mikeylito at Mikeylito.com. You can also see his show, Mikeylito Live, which is going to feature an eclectic lineup of shows that we're all eager to see. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us on PGS All-Stars.
I'm happy to do so. And all social media, it's at Mikeylito Live.
Exactly. And please check out all the PGS All-Star episodes to find out more about our community. And remember, take care, everyone, and be kind.